YouTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my weekly reviews for August the 18th through the 24th. I finished 5 books this week, super pleased with that. I think three of them were for Thriller-a-thon. As it stands right now, I will probably only get 4 out of the 9 done for Thriller-a-thon. 5 of the 9, so that's not too shabby. I don't know if I'll get a line. I should have planned it out a bit better. I ended up moving back around my TBR again, the books I had left, because we have like 1 week left of the month, and you know, I wanted to make sure I had time to get everything done that I wanted to read. So anyway, that's something for another video at another time. But like I said, I finished 5 books this week, but I did actually have a DNF, and the DNF that I had was one of the books for Thriller-a-thon. So I'm actually going to talk about that one first, because I kind of want to get it out of the way. Plus I want to share something with you guys that I learned about Goodreads this week, and I am super stoked about it because I think it's not a game changer per se, but for people who do DNF books, and it's something that's still relatively new to me. I don't tend to do it. I tend to be I just want to finish the book kind of an idea. And I realize that life is just too gosh darn short for that. And if you're not enjoying a book, just move on to the next one. But before I get into the book that I did DNF this week, I want to share with you, like I said, this new trick I learned on Goodreads. So I don't know how I found this. I think I was looking for something else. Like I was Google searching something else on how to do it on Goodreads, and I came across this article that was explaining like these neat tricks of stuff that you might not have known on Goodreads. And one of them I think was how to search 2 shelves at the same time. Like if you have 2 shelves that you've, you know, put stuff in, how to search 2 of them at the same time. And in that same article, I came across this little tidbit of information that I know a lot of us, and me, it's a new thing. So I did just add a DNF shelf for books, in case those of you do not know what that means, did not finish. And the thing is that you've got to mark it as something. Either you want to read it, you've read it, you're currently reading it. You don't want stuff sitting on your read shelf that you technically actually haven't read, that you DNF'd. Or you don't want it to be on, maybe you don't want it on your to be read list because maybe it's a book you don't plan on going back to. It could be a DNF that, you know, I'm just not into it right now, but it's a good book. Maybe I'll get back to it later. You know what I mean? There's tons of different circumstances, but for books that you truly have no interest in picking back up again, what you can do is if you go into, and I'll try and remember to put screenshots like here so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'll use obviously my own shelves as the screenshots. But if you go into like my shelves or whatever it is on Goodreads, and there's like the whole list of all the shelves that you have, there's different criteria that you can make it sortable or whatever. What you need to do is create a shelf that says DNF and click on the column that says sortable, or not sortable, sorry, that it says exclusive. And the exclusive shelf means that book can only be on that shelf at any given time. So for example, if you look at that your list of shelves, the area where you can edit the names of them and things like that, that you'll notice the top 3 are read, currently reading, and want to read. And those are grayed out with exclusive. So you can't change that. You can't make that a non-exclusive shelf. Those are, you know, those are the 3 that kind of come with your subscription to Goodreads, if you will. But you can make any other shelf that you want to be exclusive. So what I did was I created a DNF shelf and put exclusive, meaning when I now look at my Goodreads, the top like 4 shelves that are shown are read, currently reading, want to read, and now the DNF shelf. But on that DNF shelf, it actually will have a check mark beside it and it says DNF. So I really like that feature. I kind of wish Goodreads would make that a permanent shelf, because there are a lot of us who do that. And, you know, again, it's still new to me. There's only 1 book on there so far, but I'm super pleased with this, that I found this. And I think it's really interesting because, like I said, you don't want something on that DNF shelf that's marked as read because you didn't finish it. You didn't read it. You know what I mean? I mean, you read it, but you didn't read it the whole way through. And you can always put notes, DNF'd at, you know, 50% or whatever. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that little tidbit with you guys at the beginning. Now, as for the book that I did DNF this week, and that was Damaged by Pamela Cowell. It actually has an average rating of 4.12 stars on Goodreads. I wanted to like this book right from the beginning. The premise sounded very interesting about a girl who went missing and then ended up murdered. I'm not giving anything away that happens right within the first chapter. Our main female lead in this book. I cannot remember her name. Hold on, let me click on the book and see if it gives me some more information. I'm just on Goodreads right now. The Kate Lang series. So Kate Lang, our main character, is a lawyer, and she's new at this firm, and she's trying to get litigation cases, but she's mostly getting like family cases, like family law. And, you know, like, the book was good. I actually got over 50% of the way through this. I was listening to this on audio from Audible. But I just, maybe it wasn't now, maybe it wasn't the right time. You know, the fact that I now have this shelf on Goodreads that says DNF, nothing is saying I can't go back there at any time and look at those books and re-examine them and say, hey, maybe I want to give this one another try. You know what I mean? But I did get a little over 50% of the way through it, but I just wasn't interested in picking it up. Nothing wrong with the writing, nothing wrong with the characters. I found myself as I was listening to it, because it was on audio, like I said, that I'd be driving to work and I'd actually be thinking like, oh, I wonder what's on the radio right now. Or, oh, maybe I could listen to that podcast. I just had no interest in picking it up. Does that make sense? And you kind of know that when you hit a book and you're reading a book and you're kind of thinking about another book you'd like to read or something like that, you're not 100% invested in the story. And that's why I decided not to finish it. So that's the case with that one. Nothing with the author, nothing with the book. It was, I mean, for some of you might find it really interesting. The one thing I really found interesting and I really, really wanted to enjoy it more is it's set in Canada, you guys. It's set in Nova Scotia. They talk about Toronto, they talk about BC, you know what I mean? Like, it's a Canadian, by a Canadian author, no less. So for those of you who, you know, want to read some Canadian authors, this is one of them. And I didn't know that when I picked this up. But I'm almost thinking I might just put it to the side for now and maybe go back to it, because it is part of the Audible Escape package, so I can listen to it for, you know, it's included in my membership. It's not using a credit or anything like that. You know, I'm thinking maybe next July, I might do like a Canadian read-along kind of an idea to pick up Canadian authors. So this might be one that I might go back to. We shall see. But as for now, it's a did not finish. And let's move on to the books that I did finish this week. So let me go back to my notes here. So first of all, the first book that I finished this week was A Salty Caramel by Amanda Flower. This is, of course, a cozy mystery book. It is Amish Candy Shop Mystery #1, published in 2017. Goodreads, the average rating on Goodreads is 4.07 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. So for my challenges, this was for my Triple RC monthly challenge. For the A is for August. And also for my summer romance book bingo, this was for my Amish square, of course. So what I really, okay, so let me give you guys the quick little premise of this story. So this is about a character by the name of Bailey. And Bailey's father was Amish. He was Amish. He was raised Amish. And then he left the church for his wife. Like, he met Bailey's mother, and the two of them got married, and they are now like world travelers. They go all over the place. They travel. And Bailey kind of spent a lot of summers with her Amish grandparents in this tiny Amish community in Ohio. And she learned candy making and things like that from her grandfather. She is now up for a very, a big promotion to be head chocolatier for this very well-known chocolate shop in New York City, which is where she's been living for the past number of years. But then she gets a phone call from her grandmother that her grandfather has taken ill. And she goes back to Ohio to kind of look after him for a few days and see how things really are. You know, the telephone is generally only used in emergency situations, so her grandmother calling her was kind of a big deal. And, you know, typically they would only write letters to each other. But anyway, so she goes back, and that night, the first night that she's back, there's a man who is trying to buy up a lot of the Amish shops in like this town square, and he was kind of accosting her grandfather on the sidewalk in that afternoon. And then the next morning, or in the early hours of the morning, Bailey goes down to get her cell phone, which is plugged into the candy shop because that has power. Her grandparents' apartment above the shop has, of course, no power because they're Amish. And she went down to check her phone and found this man dead in the back of the candy shop. And the story goes from there. So I really, really enjoyed this. I really like the character of Bailey. What I liked about this, and this might sound funny, but for those of you who have read a number of Amish books, as I have, Elizabeth from Lizzie Faye Loves Books and I have done Amish in April twice. And I think we're going to do it again, maybe not next April, but we're going to do it maybe next summer, like next August, just because it comes right off the tail of March Mystery Madness. and it's kind of a lot all bunched up together, but I think we might push it to Amish in August, so we shall see. But anyway, I've read a number of Amish books, and what I loved is that her grandparents were not 100% like straight-laced and buttoned up. You know, there were several characters in this book that were not Amish but lived in town who got to be a little on the annoying side. And, you know, her grandmother thought nothing of rolling her eyes at, you know, a character. And, you know, would make a comment and then say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, kind of an idea. So, you know, they were Amish, but they still weren't. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know how if I'm explaining it correctly, but they just weren't that very straight-laced, buttoned up, you know, kind of Amish. They, you know, they knew a lot of it was religious, of course, that they talked about, that God would provide and things like that, but they still knew how to throw some shade, if you will, at other characters, and I really loved it. Her grandfather I adored. There was a very sad scene in this book. I'm sure you can probably imagine what it is now that I've mentioned that, but you know, it was still a really good story, and I'm very, very much looking forward to getting to the rest of the series. The next book that I finished was Claudia and the Middle School Mystery by Ann M. Martin. This is, of course, a middle grade fiction novel. It is Babysitter's Club book number 40, you guys. Originally published in 1991, Goodreads average of 3.64 stars. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one was okay. So the premise of this story, pretty short and simple, is that Claudia is accused of cheating on a test. And you know, I appreciate the fact that throughout the book, Claudia was quite upset because even though her parents didn't come out and say it, she knew that maybe deep down inside they thought maybe did she actually cheat, even though of course she denied it. But what happened was that both her and this other girl named Shauna got the exact same marks on the test, which really wouldn't be cause for concern, except for the fact that the questions that they got wrong, they both got wrong with the same answers. So that, of course, denotes there's got to be a cheat. And Shauna pipes up and goes, oh no, it wasn't me. And then automatically Claudia was kind of blamed because she's a bad student, which I didn't like that. I mean, and I think that that just kind of happens. People are labeled as certain things. Is that, you know, like, I am always going to be a bad speller. So, you know, like, that's just how it is. And if something came up and something was spelt wrong, well, obviously it's because you're a bad speller. You know, you kind of go through life with those things. And the fact that Claudia is not the best student is kind of weighing on her, and the fact that she hasn't done well in math up until this point, but she studied really hard with her sister and with Stacy and stuff like that, and she's still, you know, she earned that grade, and it wasn't her who cheated. So the teacher automatically assumed it was her. Now, what I kind of, again, and as an adult reading these, it's a little bit different than if you were a middle schooler reading these, but as an adult reading these, like, her parents said, oh, we'll go down to the school and we'll talk to the principal. And Claudia's like, no, please don't do that. I'll just take, you know, kind of, I'll figure it out on my own. Well, no. As like, if you were a parent, you would be marching down to that school going, okay, I want proof that it was my daughter before you go ahead and accuse her. So again, reading this as an adult as opposed to reading it as a middle schooler, two totally different things. So as an adult, I think the parent should have stepped in a bit more, but of course it would have been a much shorter story. But anyway, you know, things of course all work out in the end and what have you. But yeah, I think that was my big stipulation, or my big grief on this one, was the fact that her parents should have just said, I don't care what you want us to do or not. We are going down to the school and we are getting this fixed right now. Because if someone's accusing you of cheating and is going to fail you on a test that is worth like 40% of your final mark, that's a huge deal. So, you know, and Claudia was worried about the embarrassment of her parents going down, and I'm thinking, but what about the embarrassment of being labeled as a cheat? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, so it was a good story. I enjoyed it, but there were a few things, like, again, as an adult, I would have done a little bit differently. The next book that I finished was, oh my gosh, guys, this is where we started to get into a couple, no, the last three books are all part of Thriller-a-thon. Never Have I Ever by Joshilyn Jackson, excuse me. This is, as I mentioned, a thriller. This was narrated on audio by the author. I did not realize that. That's pretty awesome. She did a really good job. I didn't notice until I was filling this out after I finished the book, like taking my notes, that it was the author. I must have like been not listening at the very, very beginning. This was published in 2019. Average rating on Goodreads of 3.96 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. For my challenge, this was the newest thriller on my TBR, and it made that because I literally added it when I decided to do Thriller-a-thon. So the premise of this story was interesting It wasn't 100% edge of your seat thriller, but it was still really good. So this is the story about a woman who moves into this new community, and it's almost, I don't want to use this terminology, but almost like a Stepford Wives type community where, you know, everybody, it's in Florida, it's in Sarasota, Florida, and, you know, everybody's kind of married and they've got their 2.5 kids and their dog and blah, blah, blah. And this woman moves to town, and it's just her and her teenage son. And she claims she's there on business, so she's not here for any sort of long period of time. Well, she gets the girls at this book club to start playing this game called Never Have I Ever. And I don't know if it's something that you guys are familiar with. I never played it in school, but I am familiar with the concept because I've read about it in other books, I think. But it's essentially where a bunch of middle schoolers will sit together, or teenagers. And of course, the questions get a little bit more risque the older that, you know, these teenagers get. But when you're in middle school, for example, it could be, never have I ever skipped class. And everyone who has skipped class would take a drink. And again, as you get older, it gets a bit more risque. Of course, they were playing with alcohol, you know, things like that. But this woman changed it ever so slightly, which is, what is the worst thing that you did today? And then, you know, then everybody answers. And then whoever had the worst thing, then everybody else took a shot. And then it would go to, what's the worst thing you've done this week? What's the worst thing you've done this month, this year, you know, in your lifetime? And she was kind of getting it because she was trying to get secrets on people in town. And I don't want to divulge too much about the novel because that's the one thing with thrillers. You don't want to give too much away. But the business this woman was here on was nothing legit. Let's put it that way. Our main character in this book, whose name, I believe it's Amy, but I've read a number of books since then, and the names are kind of all... Sorry. I've read 3 thrillers back to back to back. So... not that the plots themselves are all muddled together, but the names have muddled themselves together, so I do apologize. But anyway, our main character has quite the backstory. And something horrible happened when she was a teenager. She was at fault for this thing that you don't actually find out till about 25 or 30% of the way through the book. And then the story kind of goes from there with this new woman and this secret. And, you know, it was really, really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Again, it wasn't 100% edge of your seat thriller. There wasn't that typical twist that is talked about in a lot of thrillers. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that one coming. Although there probably was, but to me, I wasn't surprised by it. I was like, oh, that's gross. But okay, you know, like, sure, I have some moral issues with it, but okay, it wasn't like a major twist. Do you know what I mean? It didn't come out of left field for me, let's put it that way. So yeah, but still, really, really good story. I borrowed this one on audio from Scribed, Scribed, I think is how it's pronounced. So, you know, if you're interested in listening to it, you can definitely find it there. But yeah, I really did enjoy this one. So the next book that I finished was my favorite book of the week. And yeah, this one was fantastic. One Night Gone by Tara Laskowski. Oh my gosh, you guys, this book was so good. Another thriller, published in 2019. This does not come out till October 1st. So, pre-order this one if you are interested. I actually had a review copy of this, obviously, from Harlequin. So many thanks to NetGalley and Harlequin, or I think it's Graydon House is a subsidiary, but Harlequin is the parent company, who published this book. So thank you again so much for the review copy of this. This has an average rating of 4.07 stars on Goodreads. Guys, I gave this one 5 stars. Now, I had a friend of mine post when I posted this on Instagram. She's like, oh my gosh, you gave this 5 stars? This must be good. Because I do not throw around 5-star ratings lightly. I think over the course of this year, I might have a dozen, roughly. And this is one that hit 5 stars. It is amazing. I've already told my mom, you've got to read this book. I've told my dad he's got to read this book. I mentioned it to Garrett. I'm like, anyone I can talk to, you need to read this book. If you are a fan of thrillers, this is one for you. And for Thrillerathon, this is the one with the creepiest cover because this is just all kinds of atmospheric. So I did an entire typed up review for this on my Goodreads page, along with of course, on NetGalley. But the premise of this story, again, I do not want to give a lot away. These are thrillers. Is about a woman who is actually a weather girl. That is her job. And she did something, or something happened that caused her to react in a certain way that caused her to lose her job. You don't find out what that thing is, but you do know that she's out of a job at the very beginning of this book, so that's not a surprise. Her sister, who's friends friend of a friend of a friend kind of an idea, has this house in this town called Opal Beach. I don't know what state it's in, but it sounds like the New England-y type area. And these friends are going to Europe for 3 or 4 months over the course of the winter, and they want someone to house sit because they also have a cat, because it would be too much to uproot the cat to move him to Europe and bring him back and all those things. So our main character, again, sorry, names are escaping me, gets the job and, to look after this house. And she's kind of wanting to rebuild her life after this incident, this thing that happened. And she's looking to kind of get away from what she's been sleeping on her sister's couch, essentially. So she kind of needs to move on and get a fresh start. And while she's in town, she begins to hear this story about this woman who went missing 30 years ago. So this is told in dual timeline, which, guys, is my catnip. I love a dual timeline story. I don't care what the story is, thriller, contemporary, it can be a mystery. I don't care. If it's got a dual timeline, I'm all over that. So this story goes back and forth between 1985 to 2015. And 2015 is our Weather Girl story. And the story kind of goes through as she's living in this town and as she's kind of investigating the disappearance of this girl from 1985. The dual perspective part of it is you're getting the perspective of Maureen. I remember her name. Our girl in 1985. She had a very bad childhood growing up. Her mother's an addict. And she is actually working at a carnival. And they end up in Opal Beach at the beginning of the summer. And it traces her through the course of the summer leading up to what happened to her. Kind of an idea. So you know right from the get-go that this girl ended up going missing. But you don't know anything else. And some of the things I kind of figured out as the story was going on, but it didn't lessen the enjoyment of it at all. It was so well written. The characters were so well done. This book was atmospheric like you wouldn't believe. The use of weather in this book was amazing. I think the author may have done that because our main character is a weather girl. But, in the summer, in Maureen's part of the story at the beginning, you get this freshness, this heat, this hope, this, last summer before college, because, even though she's not one of the locals, she's kind of there as a carnival girl, if you will, you're still getting all those things from, and, summer romance and all those things. And then on the flip side, you're getting from the dual perspective, from the dual timeline of the 2015 story of it being winter and it being the fall and then going into winter and it becoming dark and cold. And do you know what I mean? It was just so well done. So well done. Oh my gosh. Like I said, please do yourself a favor and read this book. If you are a fan of thrillers, this is, again, not an edge of your seat, oh my God, I didn't see that twist coming, kind of a thriller. This was a very, if I can use the terminology, this was a slow burn thriller in a way. And I really liked it. But there were a couple parts in this book. I don't want to give away too much, but there was one scene where she's on the phone with this guy about a job, potential job. This is our 2015 girl. And something happens and the phone goes dead because, of course, where she is at this house, not a lot of cell phone or internet reception or anything at all like that. And she kind of tosses the phone to the side. She's like, oh, I'll call him back later. And then the phone rings and she picks it up and it's him. And he's like, are you okay? She says, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And he's like, I swear I just heard you screaming. And I was at home alone when I was reading that because, of course, Garrett's working until 11 o'clock at night. And I kind of was sitting on the couch and I'm looking around the apartment. I'm like, nope. But I just kind of tossed the ebook to the side. I'm like, we're done for the night. So there were some parts that kind of made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Fantastic, 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 fantastic. Please do yourself a favor and read this book. And the last book that I finished this week, I do have a physical copy of, is One Night Gone by Lisa Jewell. The author's name is right there. I'm tired today, you guys. Sorry. This is another thriller, of course, published in 2018. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.04 stars. I gave this one 4 stars. For my challenges, for my summer romance book bingo, this hit the spot of reader's choice. So even though I've been reading thrillers and other things, I'm still trying to get a blackout on my summer romance book bingo. Actually, I will pop my current card. I can talk, you guys. Excuse me. Hold on. I am drinking papaya iced tea from Panera, which is the nectar of the gods. This stuff is flippin' amazing. If you have not had it, try it. It's to die for. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I have had popped up my bingo card up here for you guys to see. I have a few more spots to fill in. My goal is to get this done by the end of the month. I have one more week to go. So next Saturday, when I record this video on the 31st of August, that card should be full. Fingers crossed. I still have Outlander to finish. Anyway, and for Thrillerathon, this is an author that I have read before. So yay, because I did read one of her books earlier this year that I actually got from NetGalley as a review copy. But this one, of course, I picked up at a thrift store. This story, guys, was messed up. I'm pretty sure in my on my Instagram post for this one, I'm pretty sure I put effed up for this one. So again, don't want to give a lot away on this one because it is a thriller. Essentially, this is about a girl who goes missing. At the age of 15 years old, she's walking to the library and she goes missing. And then over the next 10 years, of course, her parents never stop looking for her. Now, the whole, I don't even want to say twist in this, happens right at the beginning. And reading people's reviews on Goodreads afterward, a lot of people complained about that. But I think it worked for the story because an even bigger thing ends up happening later, which is the part that's effed up. I can't say any more than that. This is told in several different perspectives, from the perspective of the mother, from the perspective of the girl named Ellie who goes missing, from the perspective of, no, I don't even want to say any more than that. There are another couple perspectives that this deals with, and it also goes back and forth in time a couple times, but you're not confused in any way. Let me tell you that, because each of the chapters says then and now. So you know where you are, chronologically speaking, in the story. So nothing, I was not in any way confused. Now, I could not put this book down, guys. I got finished this in 2 days. Like, this was such a quick and amazing read. The chapters, oops, I'm going to knock my tablet over. There are, bear with me just a second here. There are, oh, and the ending may have made me cry. Just a little. It was, the ending, as much of a twist and a turn roller coaster this book was, the ending of it just really tugged at the heartstrings, you guys. So there are 356 pages in this book, and there are a grand total of 66 chapters if you count the epilogue. 66 chapters in a 350-page book. This flies through. I like to consider this to be potato chip reading, you know? You're laying in bed at night, it's time for bed, you look and you're like, you just finished a chapter. I'm like, I'll just read one more chapter. I'll just read one more chapter. I'll just read one more chapter. And the next thing you know, you're up way past your bedtime and you're getting creeped out. Because while this one isn't creepy, like in the fact of the last one, this one is still, again, really effed up. Again, morally, there were some major issues with this book. I didn't have a problem with it. Like, okay, let me rephrase it. I have a problem with it, but in the context of the story, I get why those decisions were made and why the author chose to go that way. It was good. If you are a fan of thrillers, if you're a fan of Lisa Jewell and you have not read this one, read this one. A lot of people, I think, mentioned to me when I posted that I was going to read this one, were like, yes, I read it and it was so, so good. And yes, it was. And I really enjoyed it. And now I want to read more by Lisa Jewell because I am super stoked because I really like her writing. Oh, and she's a UK author as well, which is super fun too. So anyway, guys, that is all that I have for this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below. Have you read any of these books and what did you think about them? And how are you doing for our last week of the summer romance book bingo? I would love to know. Are you going to get a blackout? Did you get a bingo? I will be going back on the group to update everything. I'm going to let you guys have, and I'll mention this again next week, I'm going to give you guys like a week after, like for the first week of September to update everything. But as of like the first Saturday in September, I'm going to lock the threads and then I'm going to do prize draws and all that fun stuff. So there'll be a video coming for that in the next few weeks. So yes. And if you're participating in Thrillerathon, how are you doing? Because I'd love to know that too. Anyway, guys, until my next video, take care and happy reading. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye, guys.